Hi everyone, welcome to another maths video by Maths with Sarah. So again, this video is aimed at those of you who are studying for Key Stage 2 SATs, so roughly year 6, age about 10 or 11. Although as with all of these, if you're a little bit older and you're feeling like you want something, some practice like a warm-up or a good revision, then this will be perfect for you. Also, if you're a bit younger and you're wanting a bit of a challenge, this again will be really good challenge for you. Okay, so this is the question. We've got Kirsty's recipe for breakfast cereals, which has 50 grams of oats, 30 grams of raisins, and 40 grams of nuts. So we've been told if she uses 125 grams of oats, how many grams of raisins does she need? So a little bit of a tricky one. But again, I'm going to have to do it in multiple steps. As with a lot of these questions, there are lots of different ways of doing it. So don't worry if you've been taught a different way or if there's a different method that you want to use. Absolutely fine. As long as you get the right answer, it really doesn't matter. This is just the way that I use. Okay, so let's have a think about that. So we've got 50 grams of oats, but we need 125 grams of oats. So multiple steps is always a good way of doing it. So we know that if we've got 50 grams, then we need 30 grams of raisins and 40 grams of nuts. But what about if we needed 100 grams? If we need 100 grams of oats, I know that's not quite big enough, but for a starting point, I think that's a really good way to go about it. So let's think about if we use 100 grams of oats, how many grams of raisins will we need? So we've doubled the number of oats, the number of grams of oats. So let's do the same for the number of grams of raisins. So we can double that. We've doubled 30, we get 60. So we know that we need 60 grams of raisins. And although you don't need it for the question, we can also do the same for nuts. We've doubled the number of grams of oats, so we can double the number of grams of nuts. We end up with 80 grams of nuts. 40 times 2, or double 40, is 80 grams. Okay, so that was 100 grams of oats. We need 125 grams of oats. So what could we do now? We know that we've got 50 grams, and 25 grams is actually half of 50 grams. So what about if we worked out if we had 25 grams of oats, how many grams of raisins would we need then? So what have we done to get from 50 to 25? We've halved it or divided it by 2. So let's do the same. We've got 30 grams of raisins, halve it, divide it by 2. That's going to give us half of 30 is 15 grams. And again, as I said before, we don't need it for the question, but it's always good practice to work it out anyway. If we had 40 grams of nuts, each time we're halving it to go from 50 grams of oats to 25 grams of oats. So we're going to halve the number of grams of nuts. We'll go from 40 grams of nuts to 20 grams of nuts. Or half of 40, which is 20. Okay, so now what you might be realizing is we've got 100 grams. We've worked out if we've got 100 grams of oats. We've worked out if we've got 25 grams of oats. We want 125 grams. So why don't we add these together? So if we add those two together, we're going to end up with 125 grams that we needed. For the grams of raisins, we can do exactly the same. So we did that for the oats and that worked pretty well. So let's do the same for the grams of raisins. So we've got 60 plus 15. That's going to give us 75 grams of raisins. Again, although we don't need it for the question, we can do the same for the grams of nuts. So we've got 80 plus 20. That's going to give us 100 grams of nuts that we need. So we've gone from 50 grams of oats, and we've doubled it to work out the number for 100 grams. We've halved it to work out the amount of grams for 25 grams of oats. And then we've done the same for these. We've doubled and halved it, added those together to give us the different numbers or the different numbers of grams of raisins and of nuts that we need. So if we go back to the question, just check that we've worked out the right thing. We haven't misread the question, made a mistake. If she uses 125 grams of oats, how many grams of raisins does she need? So we've worked out 125 grams of oats, 75 grams of raisins. Good, so that was definitely a bit of a tricky challenge, but I think hopefully you'll have understood it now that I've talked it through. This type of question is a really good type of question. So it's one that comes up so often, and it's also really useful in real life. So it's the sort of thing where this recipe might do one person, but you're cooking breakfast for your whole family, so you need 4, 5, 6 portions instead. So then you're having to think, right, I need to times it by 6, times it by 2, depending on how many people you need the recipe to serve. Equally, it works the other way. If you've got a recipe that serves 4 people and you only want to make it for yourself, you're going to have to quarter the recipe. So this is just something that's really, really useful for real life, let alone for any exams or tests that you might take. This is really important for real life, and it's something that I do actually do pretty often when I'm cooking in the kitchen. Okay, so hopefully you found that useful. I encourage you to check out the other videos on the channel, or subscribe would be great as well. So thanks very much for watching.